to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. Our topic today is art and an ancient art form that dates back to shortly after the death of Christ. We're talking about the art of iconography. Instead of religious figures and biblical scenes, this series of icons focuses on animals and plants that are nearing extinction. Saving Biodiversity, Icons of Threatened and Endangered Species by Angela Manno is currently on display at the Coburn Gallery in the Williams Hall on the campus of the University of Vermont. This show premieres the newest addition to an ongoing series. Angela Manno joins me in studio today. Her art has been featured in numerous solo and group exhibitions, including the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C., the Smithsonian Institution, and the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Welcome, Angela.
It's great to be here.
We're happy to have you. And what was your inspiration for this series?
Well, the biodiversity crisis and the beauty of the natural world, and seeing how it's being destroyed, and wanting to lift up each of these creatures to their rightful place in the community of being.
And the word icon comes from the word iconography, and that's kind of associated with the divine or God. So do you think in some ways your work in this has been a pursuit of trying to interpret God as so many artists have in the past?
Well, that's a great question. So it's really about the image of God. So traditionally, humans are made in the image and likeness of God, at least in the Christian tradition. So what I'm trying to do is expand that image to include all of creation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in religious art, the natural world is usually in the background. You'll of course see it behind everything. So why did you want to move it to the foreground like this?
Because it's time that we did that. That in traditional iconography, nature is relegated to the background of the human divine drama. So because humans are so focused on we're so focused on ourselves, that anthropocentrism, that I felt that I needed to expand the canon of images to include nature, really for the life of the world, so that everyone can perceive nature as sacred and necessary.
And this is, you say nature is very much in general, so we're going to highlight a couple different pieces coming up, but a lot of it you were intentional about trying to make sure you had a little bit of everything, is that right? Can you tell me some of the range that you've highlighted?
Yes, so as you said, I was very keen on having a balance of all the different categories, so that's fish, mammals, birds, insects, amphibians, reptiles, plants, and other invertebrates.
Yeah, so a lot to see.
That's a lot to see. Yeah, so there's going to be 20 pieces in the exhibit, and it'll cover all that range.
Great. And iconography is a pretty specific art form, and it depends on some specific tools and techniques. Can you talk about that?
Yes, you bet. So it's part of why I really love this whole process is because of the materials. So you're dealing with gold leaf, you're dealing with clay, which is in a liquid form, and everything is in its natural state, which in traditional iconography, it's to give glory to God, so you're using nature in its most natural state. The pigments are sometimes made of ground up semi-precious stones or earth ochres, which come in various colors. So they could be white all the way to turquoise, and then your earth colors. So yeah, it's really a joy to work. And of course, it's called egg tempera is the medium. So you have to mix up a concoction of an egg yolk with white distilled vinegar and water, and that's what you mix your powdered pigments with to paint.
Wow, as a non-artist, I didn't realize that eggs were so heavily involved.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a difficult and painstaking process. So how meticulous is it? How much time does one of these take?
Well, first of all, it takes a lot of concentration. So you're very focused. And it can take from a week to 6 months, depending on the complexity of the image.
And is this an art form you've worked with a lot in the past?
It's out of my training in traditional Byzantine Russian iconography. That's when I learned the medium along with the meaning and the symbolism. So before that, I've worked in a lot of different media.
Sure.
Pastel, oils, encaustic.
A woman of many talents.
Fabric, thank you.
And this is definitely something that you want to see in person, both as an art form and also your work specifically. And can you talk a little bit about the size and kind of the artistic challenges that the size creates?
Oh, well, they're small. They're 9 by 7 inches and 1 inch thick. And they have a wonderful presence. And I think it partially due to these materials. And I forgot the other question you asked me.
Oh, if it was a challenging process at all to try and work so small?
No, actually, it's just perfect. It's the perfect size. I
Great.
wanted them to look like little jewels. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, more than 444 species are endangered, and that must give you a whole range of things to choose from. So how do you choose what animals or insects or plants even that you want to highlight?
Well, a number of things go into it. First of all, like I said, I want to have a balance, so that's absolutely a non-negotiable. And then sometimes it has to do with what colors I want to work with. Like one day I said, and I picture how the series is going to look all together. So it's like, okay, we need a red critter. So I found the scarlet honeycreeper in Hawaii. That's a beautiful bird and is endangered. So sometimes it's aesthetic. And then other times it's very vital, like when I learned about the plight of the pangolins, which are being poached for their scales, and they're on the brink of extinction. So it's variety of reasons why I do that.
And you highlighted color a little bit. Is that ever informed by, you were pointing out the natural pigments you get, is that ever informed by the materials you work with?
The materials, they're pretty, I can get just about any color I want.
I should never have doubted.
Yeah. And sometimes you do layering, actually. So you can build up the color.
Sure.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones you chose to highlight in this was the Florida panther, which of course in Vermont is near and dear to our hearts because we here call it the catamount. I mean, you can actually see it on your screen there. That's beautiful. So why did you choose this animal to start with?
It was just out of compassion, when I learned about that there's only about 100 to 150 individuals left in the wild. I work a lot with the Center for Biological Diversity, and I get a lot of information from them. Actually, they've helped me fact check on some things as well. So, and they're heavily involved with conserving the Florida panther, trying to get wildlife corridors constructed so they're able to roam and breed and not get hit by cars.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So there's definitely kind of a emotional or personal connection to some of the ones you choose.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about another one that you're featuring, and this one is a loggerhead sea turtle. Tell me about this one.
Okay. Well, so the loggerhead sea turtle is one of 7 varieties of sea turtles. They're all endangered. This one is critically endangered. And for a number of reasons. Oil spills. They mistake the plumes of oil for the sargassum seaweed that they need to survive. Plastics, which they eat, which kills them. There's so many challenges. Airgun blasting, which can damage or kill. Ship strikes, bycatch, which is just inadvertent catching in nets that are targeting other fish, and the chemical compounds that have been sprayed to mitigate oil spills, which are highly toxic. So these guys are very challenged, as are many reptiles and amphibians, because they're very susceptible to what's in the environment.
Sure. And as we saw in that painting, it's not just the sea turtle, you also include a little bit of some coral there as well. Do you try and incorporate some of their habitat?
I do sometimes, yeah. So, and of course then if you go into corals, they're also highly endangered as well. So,
Yeah, that one got kind of two birds, one stone there.
Yes, yes.
And you mentioned a little bit, you were even talking about the turtle. You very knowledgeable about the animals that you paint. Is that part of your process, learning about the endangered species?
Totally, yes. So it's quite an education once I select an animal, is to learn all about it, its habitat, its niche, what it contributes to its environment, and also, which is very interesting, people don't realize that what's happening to them is happening to us. Like all of those toxins in the Gulf of Mexico, those dispersants, they go into human beings. There have been liver and kidney damage in, for instance, the workers at the Exxon Valdez oil spill. So it's you learn how interconnected everything is, and so it's not just being concerned about other species, it's being concerned about the whole, the earth that we're a part of. We drink that water, we breathe that air. So that was a big learning curve for me.
And we mentioned earlier there are about 44,000 endangered species. So how far do you expect the series to go? Are you going to try and get them all?
Well, it'll be beyond my lifetime. But so I've taken a little break now because I'm working on another project, a publishing project. I have a series of cards and a book coming out of this 36 images. But what I'd like to do next is I'd like to go to Africa so I can experience the African wildlife. Don't have any African flora or fauna in my series yet. So that'll be a special one. And I'm also planning to do something on factory farmed animals as well.
All right, great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
This has been great, yeah. And to see saving biodiversity, icons of threatened and endangered species, visit the Coburn Gallery in the William Hall on the campus of the University of Vermont. This show runs now until October 28th. And that takes care of our program for today. My thanks to the icons behind the scenes here at WCAX. I'm Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.